This is a part 2. Make sure to watch the other parts first.
We have finished year 1. Guess it's now time to talk about my grand solo plan. So I wrote this in my void. And basically, I had this idea to stab one colonial every 2 years. So I was going to stab the Netherlands in fall of 1643, and then stab Portugal in fall of 1645, and then stab France in fall of 1647, and then stab Spain in fall of 1649. And this didn't end up working out, but I felt like it would get too predictable if I did actually stab every year, and we'll get to 1646 when it happens, but yeah. Okay, so now it's, I guess, time for me to start talking about the stab on the Dutch. So I told you earlier this channel move was agreed on. I had it all planned out. Everybody was fooled. But you could see here, I pulled up my conversation with Molly, and we basically talked, and he said, I'm going to give up any chance that I have of winning the game in order to prevent you from getting into Niani. And I was like, oh, he can actually do that. I don't know why I thought that I was going to be able to get there with 2 armies. Overinflated confidence. But he helped me realize that. And, because I was pretending to the entire rest of the board that this was not agreed on, I was telling him, I didn't really consider the Gold Coast move, even though it was agreed, because of English Channel, right? And so me and France were allied, and only me and France knew about this. And I was wanting to stab the Dutch in North America and in India. And so I'm thinking, okay, how can I make this look natural? And so I had Mali and Spain act as intermediaries, and we pretended to work it out, even though we already had. Yeah, all this happened. So I get Mali to agree to support me into Aja. And yeah. So the plan was to move, I think, Cormonton to Notza and Jiamen to Cormonton, and to have Gold Coast go to Gulf of Guinea, allegedly to contest Sao Tome from Congo, which, is obviously what I wanted to do, but the main reason was just so that Gold Coast was, so that Jiamen wasn't threatened, and, to slow down Congo. So, yeah, I was pretty proud of this, although I will say Molly did most of the work here in convincing me and not the other way around. I had eventually planned to turn on the Dutch, and I was talking to Congo at the same time, thinking, we don't actually need the Dutch to hold back Mali. If I can just form this defensive line, Mandan, Jiamen, Cormonton, Aja, Great Ardra, Oyo, and you can prevent him from using the Sahara to expand over into Central Africa, then we can actually just replace the Dutch units with our own and still hold the line against Mali. And yeah, that turned out to be completely wrong. Yeah, but anyway, the point is, I was pretending to the rest of the board that uh, I was fighting France, and then Mali knew that I wasn't, and Congo knew somewhat. Uh, Congo knew that I was stabbing the Dutch, so I'm sure they were able to piece that together. Uh, and yeah, Africa was probably the most interesting region of the game for me. It's where I put a lot of my focus into, which sounds weird because it's England's smallest colony. But just a lot of back and forth stuff happened here. I enjoyed it. Uh, I think that the situation needs to be changed a little bit so that Mali is slightly less powerful than it is now. Because in every game that I've seen except Marigold, Mali has done really well. I'm sure that there's another game where Mali has not done well. But most games, unless all four colonials are working against them, and even then, how long can you expect four colonials? I'm counting Poland here as a colonial, even though, Poland is kind of a colonial. It's not realistic to kill Mali most of the time. So, anyway, yeah, that was Africa, making plans. And then over in North America, so I told Molly, don't tell anybody about me and France being allied. And looking back, they kept this promise almost, except for they told Shoshone that I was planning to stab the Dutch and work with France. And Shoshone was, in the group chat with me and Atha and Inuit against France. And so they didn't believe a word of this. They were like, well, there's been a lot of bad blood between Mali and England. There was some talk in the public press about him executing me or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. So he was like, he's just trying to throw cold water on England. Didn't actually take it as anything. But I did see in the North American regionals chat after the game that he did mention it. So it didn't come as a complete surprise to everybody, just mostly everybody. So I think I already talked about the desire to take Iceland as soon as possible, just because Russia is close to it, and so is Inuit. I know that I had Greenland Sea DMZ'd, but I thought nobody's ever going to take Ireland off me unless they can conquer, London and Plymouth and stuff. So it's probably safe if I move Irish Sea to Iceland Basin, and then I can take both centers this year. And I had that planned from the start when I bounced it at the start. And then I wanted to get this army in Oxford off to Bergen, but I also didn't want to leave London open for France to take because he had already taken Amsterdam. And, this is a really dumb thing to say, but Poland made some joke about France collecting European capitals like Infinity Stones. And I started to think, yeah, that might actually be the case. Oh, Amsterdam. Yeah, I should probably talk about that. So, Austria, right? I'd already told you they're allied to Russia, and Poland and Sweden were on good terms for most of the game. Sweden and Russia weren't. And then Poland and Russia were on and off. And Poland and Sweden were planning to push into the Netherlands together. And Austria is seeing this, and they're saying, oh, Poland is going to get big. That's bad. So they're wanting, and they're also worried because Austria and France, it's very rare for them to be at peace. It's definitely possible, but it is not the norm. And it's just any builds here by either side turns it into, a complete mess. So Austria owes me something. Uh, I believe it was my idea to split Switzerland in half because I wanted to have a province, uh, Geneva, because of John Calvin. I wanted Geneva just for fun. And so Flair, one of the creators, took this idea and said, we can't write that on the map, but we should definitely split Switzerland in half because these two provinces, Bern and Chur, they were one. And it made Austria and France share a border right at the start of the game. And Austria was like, thank you for doing that. And so we had a pretty good relationship for a lot of the game. And I was talking to him about, slowing France down. And so Austria had this crazy idea called the Council of Europe. And it was basically like some idea to say, make peace with all the colonials in Europe. And that doesn't really work because Austria doesn't have any colonies. So I'm not sure why they actually wanted to do this, but they started the Amsterdam Conference, which was a long press channel designed to get France to cede Amsterdam back to the Netherlands, mostly so that the Netherlands could resist Poland and Sweden. And every power in Europe was included in this except for Poland and Sweden. And we noticed this. And when we asked Austria about it, they were like, well, it's not relevant to them. No. Okay, so here it is. And the goal was basically to get the Netherlands capital back because we all knew that they weren't going to be able to take it back by force without my help. And even then, it was going to take a while. Let me see if I can. There we go. Okay. So it was basically like a council. And I decided to wait for the others to respond. France basically said that the Netherlands wasn't communicating with them at all. And they messaged me and they were like, is Austria for real? And yeah, the Netherlands, they basically said that France was the aggressor, and they basically said every French unit must move away from both me and them. And I didn't really want to say much. And yeah, I think that I didn't. And I eventually said that I would agree to this if France messaged me and said that they were not going to deal with any of this. So I made up this story that Parliament failed to pass it unless France never cores Ceylon, which ended up getting taken, I think, later. That was that was something that Austria offered, was a trade of Pamerbo and Ceylon for Amsterdam. Pamerbo is here. and Ceylon right here. And I wanted to make sure that France would never core Ceylon because I had plans to eventually get out into the Indian Ocean, and I didn't want France to start uh, controlling much of it. Uh, yeah. So that happened, and let me see if I can find. Okay, here it is. This was the result of this was Austria was starting to think it's UK, Austria, and Russia and Ottomans against uh, against France, Poland, and Sweden. And we weren't really sure where Spain was going to fall, but we were pretty sure that they were going to stick with France. Uh, yeah. So I think the whole point of it was a silly idea. I think the whole point of it was just to get the Netherlands their capital back. Austria really didn't want to see France growing in this direction, and they wanted Poland and Sweden to not be able to work effectively together by having the Netherlands fighting with them. So yeah. Anyway, that was a really long spiel about basically nothing, but it was an important part of the press. So yeah. And then up here, me and Russia were getting ready to attack Sweden. And my goal was to make sure that no matter what France did, he wouldn't be able to take London or Plymouth. So he wanted to keep Amsterdam. And he said it would probably mean war with Austria, which was fine with him because he wasn't going to attack Spain. And so all these armies are going to need something to do. So I make the decision that if he's not going to stab Portugal and he's not going to attack me, then I should let him into Southern Bight. Whereas the previous plan was that he would go to Rockall Rise and North Atlantic and maybe go against the Inuits into Labrador Sea. I figured it would be better for him to go this way because he would be able to keep pushing east and help against Sweden eventually. Whereas Rockall Rise, that gives him the chance to stab me, stop me from getting to Iceland or Ireland, or, uh, even rebuild in Nantes and go after Plymouth. And then, so yeah, I was going to go Irish Sea to Iceland Basin and Plymouth to Irish Sea, and then London to North Sea and Oxford to London. So that way, no matter what happened, he wouldn't be able to take London or Plymouth because I would be bouncing London. And then if he tried to go for Plymouth, I would still have the unit that's currently in Plymouth in Irish Sea, and I would have the army in London. So that worked out pretty well. And then I didn't have anything to do with Edinburgh, so I decided to have it core. And then me and Russia said that the easiest target in Sweden was probably going to be Trondheim. And in our split, we had agreed that Trondheim would be his, but it was easiest for me to take it because his supports couldn't be cut, whereas mine could. So I moved Bergen to Vestland to make room for the convoy to Bergen, and he moved Barentszee to Finnmark. And we figured one of them will probably get bounced, but we should be able to have at least two on Trondheim by the end of this year. or by the end of spring. And then at the start of the game, I did not really realize how close Inuits and England actually are to each other. Uh, but looking at it now, and especially looking at some other games where Inuits have actually taken over the whole northern area, uh, they're really not that far from Iceland. They're not that far from getting into Europe. I didn't even realize during the entire game, but North Atlantic borders Greenland Sea right here. Uh, so I didn't realize at the time, but Greenland Sea is a huge sea tile, and being able to get that DMZ with Inuit and not taking Godthab, even though I was supporting France against Inuit, being able to have peace with Inuit was a really, really important thing, even though I didn't realize it at the time. So that was and then the plan here in North America was to kill the Netherlands and eventually take Cherokee. And basically, my idea was France will push this way and Spain will push this way. And so then I'll have no units on my border. I don't even have to stab France here. I can just sit back and core everything and then stab when I'm ready. Uh, Maybe if they start winning, then I'll be able to attack them from behind while their units are all the way out here. Or if they don't win, which is what I expected at the time, uh, I'll just be able to collapse on them whenever I need to because I already have a relationship with these powers, whereas France does not. So tactically, I said Norfolk to Maryland and Boston to Connecticut and Mohawk to Oneida. And I was thinking that I could probably get the Netherlands to go to Oneida as well. And so my plan was to get them to go New Amsterdam to Oneida, hypothetically with my support, and then have Philadelphia support that. And then I asked France to support Mohawk to Oneida with Seneca. And this was actually a tactical mistake because say that Mali had decided that they were going to take my centers instead of the Dutch because they wanted the Dutch to help me against Congo. That didn't happen, but say that they had, right? So they're screaming to the Dutch that England is going to stab you, England is going to stab you. So would they really cover Oneida, which France and I have 3 units on? Or would they cover Maryland and Connecticut instead? So I think a better move would actually have been to have Seneca cut Philadelphia, because that would have made it more difficult for Netherlands to take Maryland. But I guess the reason that I ended up saying that was because I was afraid that Netherlands would actually find out about it. And so I didn't want France to end up in Philadelphia because a part of our split was that that would be my center. And so I didn't want him to have that excuse of, well, I'm already here. So that was the reasoning. But tactically, if the goal was to kill Netherlands, that's a mistake. And then I didn't really know what to do with this fleet in St. Anthony. So I supported Capox Mels into Strait of Belle Isle. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I'm not French. Well, I'm a little bit ethnically French, but I don't speak French at all. I mean, there's nothing to do with this, right? If France wants to kill me here, he can kill me. So, and I didn't feel like coring it because that would have been probably seen as aggressive. So, and then over in the Caribbean, we had agreed to DMZ DMZ, Cuba, right? Spain was going to move to Gulf of Mexico. I was going to move into Jamaica, and the condition was that I don't core Jamaica. I will seriously regret that later. But I do get to core St. Augustine because my argument is that if Spain can get over into the eastern United States, then that's really bad for me. And I don't want anybody to be contesting in AO, right? I know Portugal isn't doing too great over here, so they're probably not going to get many builds. And if they are, they're probably not going to Azores because, well, they don't have any enemies in Europe right now. And Inuit is not on good terms with Russia at this point in time. I think that's something that I've kind of ignored, but they were not allied off the bat, whereas Russia and Qing for a lot of the game were closely allied. They didn't really attack anybody together. They just didn't attack each other. And Inuit saw the writing on the wall and thought, okay, Russia's my enemy. And so that was another reason why I really wanted the DMZ in Greenland Sea and why it worked so well was because Inuit knew if they went there that Russia was going to support my side and not theirs. So yeah, NAO was basically mine at this point. This Polish fleet in New Courland, I guess, could technically contest it. Portugal could have contested it, but considering that Portugal and the Netherlands were not exactly the best of friends here, I figured that I was probably okay. So yeah, I think I already talked about Fleet Barbuda going to Gianna Current, both to make sure that France actually did what he said he would do, and because I was like wanting to stab Poland. Fleet Bahamas, I mostly built just in case either France or Spain decided to stab me. I would be able to control Bermuda, and I wouldn't let fleet in Cap Haiti take these 3 centers. In hindsight, it might have been better to have built a fleet in Bermuda than in Barbuda, because a stab on Poland wouldn't have really worked here. But it happened, and it there was nothing I could do about it. And then in India, me and Safavid and Portugal were. I honestly don't remember much of the negotiation about this phase, but I do remember that I was saying I'm going to threaten Ceylon, but not actually take it because I need to get into Andhra Coast. So I can't remember what we were doing, but for a lot of the game, my only communications with Safavid and with Portugal were about India. And we just kind of forgot about our individual press channels, and there was a lot of potential for leaked moves there, but we were all in on attacking the Mughals, and so yeah, we worked together here a lot. Yeah, I'm rambling again. That means it's time to move on, I think, to spring. So Europe played out exactly as I predicted. Austria and France went to war. Spain and the Ottomans fought, and Poland and Sweden both attacked the Dutch, and Sweden bounced Russia out of Finnmark, which I'll talk about more in a second. And yeah, the French did not give Amsterdam back. So I can't remember much about this agreement with Russia because I didn't know it that well at the time. I was basically saying, look, we got to kill Sweden together. And since they were already fighting over here, he was like, sure, whatever. I debated convoying Edinburgh or London into Bergen a lot here. And that was because I didn't want France to be able to take London, but also I wanted to get Edinburgh cored. And I debated it a lot. I changed the order several times in my orders channel. And I think the thing that ultimately ended up with me deciding it was Austria's reaction to me and France being at peace. He was very upset about it. And a lot of the board was as well. I'll talk about the North American regionals in a second. If you thought Austria was pissed, they were pissed. But overall, it went pretty much how I expected it to go in Europe, and that was fine with me. There was one thing though that was kind of weird. So Austria and Ottomans were allied. France and Spain were allied. Poland was pro-French and anti-Austrian. Ottomans were anti-Spanish and anti-Polish. So Poland, France, Spain was one alliance, and then Austria and Netherlands was another alliance against them. Anyway, so yeah, Austria is going in both directions against Poland and against France, and they're really committed to going against Poland because they think, oh, England is going to be helping against France. And that was the one thing that I maybe could have done better was indicate that I was not going to attack France to Austria, which would have slowed France down and let me get even further ahead of everybody else on the board than I already was. But overall, went very well in Europe. I was going to be able to get 2 builds here. Was pretty sure that I was going to be able to get the convoy into Bergen going. And I thought, I'm going to be able to pump out an army into Scandinavia every year. I'll push through Sweden, and eventually I'll end up fighting Russia. And I have a better relationship with Inuits than Russia does. So if I need to, then I'll be able to get their help against Russia from both sides. And I have a good relationship with Safavids, who are already attacking the Russians. That will become important later. But anyways, yeah. So going well in Europe. Still, it's constantly tense because France has a fleet right next to my capital. And Sweden has a lot of fleets total. But it's going well. Let's see. Over in North America, things played out exactly like I predicted. Yeah, I don't really think that there's anything to talk about here. The trade agreement was that I take Port Royal and eventually Cap Haitian. Port Royal this year, Cap Haitian at an unspecified date in the future. And then France gets St. Anthony and St. John's. And this makes sense. I think I already talked about Massachusetts Bay and how vulnerable it is. And, St. John's, I didn't want to have a war with the Inuits. So I thought, well, I'll just let France and Inuits duke it out. That was kind of how I felt about all the North American regionals. I thought France will provide a buffer. I get to sit back and core everything. It's a great deal. Uh, and yeah, I could have used it to my advantage better, but at this point, I think that I had played North America perfectly. I was still getting dots in Philadelphia and New Amsterdam. Nobody was building fleets in the Caribbean against me. I was in a secure position here if I needed to be, but I had no enemies on my border. I even felt so secure about the Inuits that I left Bratahalid. Uh, I honestly cannot remember why I did this because there weren't any centers bordering NAO that I wanted uh, that I didn't already have. But think I was just like, I need to stake my claim in that NAO is my territory and nobody else's. And then uh, I think I talked some about Poland and about this move to Barbuda. I had agreed to give them Barbados at the start because I thought that that's where they would go, but they went to Caracas instead, and so I was kind of locked into it. But I saw this army in Dakaru holding and not retaking Jacob Fort, and that made me upset. But I think the reason was Poland and Portugal did not trust each other the whole game. And so Poland was offered a deal by Mali to just stay alive in Dakaru. And, oh, my voice. And they took it. And so I was very, very glad that I did not have any problems in regards to Africa. And I'll talk about that more in a second. So this Bouncin and Taylor's current was agreed on. I knew that if he wanted to support himself there, that would be, something that I couldn't stop. But I also said, if I'm in Antilles Current, then he can't go to Windward Passage, or he can't go to Antilles Current and Mona Passage and take Puerto Rico. So I'm safe to move this army into Guadalupe. And if he wanted to go to Windward Passage, it would be with one fleet, and so we would have a 50-50 here. So I figured this was my best play, and yeah, it worked out. So this move to Caribbean Sea, the plan here was that I would allow this fleet to get out of here. I think that he was mostly worried that Spain would build a bunch of fleets and take over, or that I would do the same, build a fleet in Bermuda. And, he already knew that I was building in Barbuda and in Bahamas. And so he started to think, okay, I got to defend Cap Haitian. But once the fleet was built, he was like, I need Poland's help against Austria. So, yeah, we made this plan where he was going to pass through Guadalupe with this fleet here and just keep the other one in Cap Haitian so that he wouldn't be able to build there. Which had me somewhat nervous, but considering that I had an army on this island chain, I figured, well, what the heck, it's not like it's going to be able to do anything, and if it does take a center, then I can just retake it. So, Caribbean going well, just short of Chord Jamaica. But that's for later. Anyway, Honduras North Coast. I was glad to see this move actually, even though it is closer to me, because it means that he can't core Spain can't core Belize, which is something that I was worried that she might do after, I decided to core St. Augustine, but that did not happen. So now, Muskogee, Cherokee, Tutelo, it's all my territory now. Uh, and all the French and Spanish units are moving away from me. And yeah, the only real thing is that France won't let me take Barbados because they want Polish help against Austria and the Dutch. And yeah, I probably could have pushed back on that more, but I knew that I was going to be able to stab Poland whenever I wanted to. And so I figured it wasn't worth causing tension with France over. And then Africa was the only place where it wasn't obvious that I had stabbed the Dutch. Uh, uh, but this move to Sinufo, what we had done was me and Molly, we agreed not to bounce Sinufo. We had started by doing that, but he backed out of it because he was worried that I was just making room for the Dutch to get into Niani. So he ended up self bouncing Luma, and I can't remember why I did Sinufo and not Notsa. I think it was because me and Congo were talking about being able to hold the line against Mali. And since Mali had already agreed to support me into Aja, I thought, okay, well, if I can get Sinufo and Aja and Great Ardra and Congo can get into Oyo, uh, then we'll have this line against them, and we'll still be able to hold it without the Dutch units. We'll get extra centers. We can dump those into other places. Uh, it'll be just like having the Dutch under our control. So, yeah. Uh, it was it a tactical mistake? I don't think so. With what I was going for, but uh, but it was definitely a warning sign to Mali that he ended up getting that I wasn't serious about peace for very long, and I wasn't going to attack Congo. Uh, Over in India, I calculated that it was much more likely that Mughals would take Gondwana than Orissa. Uh, I figured that they would probably want to keep me out of Andhra Coast, and I figured that Atutaya would be too busy with the Netherlands to actually ever be able to support Mughal into Andhra Coast. So I moved Madurai to Gulf of Mannar, and this got me thinking about stabbing Portugal, but I felt like I needed the ally, and so I wasn't seriously considering taking Maldives. But it is one thing that I did tell France, I think, because I was not excited that Reunion was moving to the Indian Ocean. He justified it by saying, well, the Netherlands are my biggest enemy over in South America, and in Europe, they're my enemy. So, you know, the Indian Ocean, a lot of those centers are Dutch, and none of those centers are English, so it's not an attack on England. But like I said, I did not want France to come into Ceylon and start, because, I wanted to have basically the full Raj, uh, all of India. That was the eventual goal. And I wanted it to be just me and Portugal there so that I would be able to actually accomplish it, because I knew Portugal wasn't doing very well elsewhere. Uh, so I think I already talked about how I would redesign India because it sucks to backfill. But anyway, Madurai to Gulf of Mannar gave me the option of taking Ceylon, uh, and it forced the Dutch to actually cover it, which I think is what ended up happening. So I calculated that it would be better to move to Andhra Coast, uh, move the fleet or support Madras to Andhra Coast in fall, and I figured that I would get no cut of the support there because the Netherlands would probably go back to Ceylon, and then they wouldn't be able to build against me because that's their only core close to India. So yeah, things are going well across the entire board. Uh, yeah. Uh, this move over here in Arabia, this is agreed on. Uh, I don't think that Gulf of Oman was agreed on between Mughal and Safavid. Uh, I can't remember. Oh yes, so this move from Khiva to Turkestan, I asked Safavid about it. It wasn't an attack on Russia. It was to make sure that uh, that they weren't gonna be betrayed by Russia. I forget what the justification was, but it was like he's already got enough supports that he's gonna get into Yarkand regardless, and he thought, this is gonna work well for uh, a preventative measure, basically. Uh, Anything else? Oh yes. So Ottomans. The Ottomans had three different players. The first talked to basically nobody. They said it was like talking to a brick wall. The second, uh, they had better press, but they weren't super strong tactically. And the third Ottoman player, I think, was the best. But by that point, it was pretty much an unrecoverable position. Uh, but I think this was the second Ottomans' first moves phase. And they ended up allying to Mali. And Congo was supposed to support Khanum de Hausa states. And there was this this really made Congo mad, and I was jumping up and down because I was afraid that, Congo and Mali would do what they did to the Dutch to me immediately after the Dutch were gone. And so I figured, oh, that's great. And really, Congo and Mali were at each other's throats the whole game. I think they both quickly identified that they were the biggest two threats to each other in terms of African regionals. Uh, And so throughout the game, they both tried to recruit me to their cause against the other. And so that was very entertaining. I really like the way that Africa is laid out here. Uh, well, the way that the game went, anyway. Uh, in spite of the way that Africa is laid out, because I still think that Mali is too difficult to kill. Uh, Rarely happens. But anyway, yeah, so this made Congo, they were mad at Mali, and Mali was confused at what was going on, I think. I cannot remember exactly. Anyway, so yeah, that was 1643. It was a very, very good year for the English. And yeah, let's anything else to talk about? Uh oh, the Netherlands stabbed Portugal, I think. Was that this year? Yeah. The Netherlands stabbed. Oh, no, this. So you notice the support from Buenos Aires to Canguene from Asuncion. And that is a bigger deal than you might think because Well, I guess you might not be able to tell from the moves, but uh, at the start of the game, from what I was getting, Aymara was anti-Spanish and Mapuche was pro-Spanish, and Mapuche was anti-Portuguese, and Aymara was pro-Portuguese. That's what I had been hearing, and apparently that's what Portugal was thinking as well. And you remember Portugal is the nice guy player, and he formed a special relationship with Aymara, and so this support from Buenos Aires to Conguine really kicked him out of the game emotionally. Uh, it was he made a whole big deal about it. There was a press channel called Aymara Broke My Heart, and he was basically listing grievances. Uh, it was it's difficult to describe. Maybe I should just show you. Uh, typing. Aha. Here it is. Here we go. Uh, he had kind of a positive attitude about it in a way, but also was very emotionally distressed. I had never seen something like this in a diplomacy game, but yeah. Uh, it it yeah. Wow. So he called for a 25-way draw, uh, which I definitely accepted totally. Uh, uh, see. Uh, yeah. I totally accepted this draw, and it was a very big deal. It should have been in the newspaper, honestly. Uh, this it it was something that got talked about a lot, and it will cascade into something else that I'll talk about later. But this support, just remember it and remember that Portugal is really sad at this point in the game, and uh, they don't. They're no longer really playing for the win. They're 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 just sad. I don't know how best to describe it, but there's a change in the Portuguese press from mostly being about the game to what do you need help with? Like he went from what centers can I get to how can I best help my allies? And so from this point on, I think me and Safavid in our press channel debated uh, our moves here in India as if we were all three one country. And then we would write out an order set for Portugal. And then we would ping him with those moves, and he would look at them and make sure that they weren't uh, just giving up centers to us. And then he would say, okay, that's fine. And he would put them in the bot. And so that was how the three of us interacted for quite a while. So, yeah, crazy stuff happening. All the North American regionals are now upset with me because I lied to them about attacking France. The Netherlands are upset with me because I lied to them about attacking France. Sweden is upset with me because I moved to Vestland and I'm obviously preparing to convoy here. Uh, uh, the Dutch, I I already said I'm upset with the Dutch. Uh, yeah. So basically, everybody on the board except for Portugal, France, and Spain, and Mali are and Congo are upset with me. Uh, so yeah, it was. Uh, I had not a lot of friends, but the friends that I did have were powerful, but less powerful than me. So that is the position that you want to be in. You want to be allied to the strong players, but also in a position where you can stab them, but they can't stab you. That's the key. And I guess I didn't talk about retreats. This unit in Helsingfors moved to Karjala, I think, and this Ottoman unit retreated to Van. I think that's it. Yeah. So fall moves. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I decided that uh I wasn't going to be able to hold Bergen because there was 3 on it really because Trondheim could cut Vestland. And so I figured Sweden would probably invest everything in taking Bergen from me, and I was right, I think. It's hard to tell because the way that convoys worked at the time makes no sense visually. But I did end up doing Edinburgh, and this meant that Edinburgh wasn't cored, but I figured, I do want to actually keep building fleets in Plymouth and London because if Edinburgh is cored, I won't have an excuse to France to build fleets there. But if I keep building units down here, then I can deter stabs as I need to, and also have the option to stab when I need to. Uh, so that was a bit of the thought process. And then, even though Trondheim was supposed to be Russian, according to our split, Russia didn't have any available units for convoying in, whereas I had Edinburgh. So we ended up putting me in Trondheim, knowing that eventually I would take Bergen and then move the army down into Christiania to let Russia get their own unit into Trondheim. And so, yeah, the convoy to Trondheim succeeded, and I lost Bergen, so we're +0 here. But obviously, I got Ireland and Iceland. Uh, yeah. So, to North America, uh, the Dutch, I think, subbed out at the end of this turn. I think that me stabbing them really put a wrench into their plans because they threw all their coins into it. I mean, really, they wanted to attack France here with me. They wanted to attack Mali here with me. They wanted to, well, I guess not here, but this really screwed over the Netherlands uh, a lot. And then, that was the goal, but it had to happen. Anyway, so they started to move away. And initially, I think I was going to do Maryland support Connecticut to New Amsterdam so that I would have an easier, quicker time getting into Cherokee from Maryland. But France talked me out of it because Maryland's support could get cut by Philadelphia, whereas Connecticut's support can only be cut by New Amsterdam, which, wouldn't actually stop the action from happening. So I decided to continue coring Catawba and build an army there, which definitely happened. So, yeah, anyways, uh, me and France, uh, I had agreed to give up St. Anthony's and St. John's, but I decided to, or France decided that taking Nascapi was more important than Labrador Sea. So I got to, or I misspoke. France wasn't available. So I decided to move out the way and into an AO. And, I also thought, well, this Capox Milis, which I'm sure I'm still pronouncing wrong, that's a great position to be in if I need to stab France. I could build in St. John's, Portland, Boston. I can build in Bahamas. I can build in Barbuda. I can build in Plymouth. I can build in Oxford. I would have a really good stab on France right now, or so I thought, because they're struggling all across the board. Uh, they're getting attacked by all three regionals in North America. And basically, me and Spain are their only allies. They're getting attacked in South America by the Dutch. They're getting attacked by, uh, uh, well, they're attacking Portugal in Africa. So, I thought, I could get a lot of centers by just stabbing, uh, stabbing the French. But also, it's a good way to get out the way because White Bay doesn't border NAO. So the only way to get this fleet in St. Anthony out to do something useful, if I wasn't going to stab France, would be to move it here and then through St. Margarita Bay, if that's how you say that. I don't know. Yeah, so Bay of Panama. I actually forgot why this move happened. I do not remember why I was okay with this. Because that's a pretty solidly anti-English move. Because he could, or she could, rebuild a fleet in Panama North Coast and move to Windward Passage and then move Gulf of Mexico to Havana, maybe build in Mexico City East Coast, and, take Baracoa and Jamaica. But basically, my alliance with France and Spain was built on the premise that if any one of us decided to stab any other one, then the third one would support whoever got stabbed, not whoever was stabbing. And that's basically how any three-way works, right? But the fear was if you were the one to stab, then you would end up losing to the combined forces of the other two. And I guess I didn't want to have another situation like I had in fall of 1642, where it was, I was completely reliant on France for this bounce in St. John's, right? He could have walked into St. Anthony and I would have not gained St. Anthony. He would have gained a center there and I'd have not been able to build in St. John's. Same thing here with Jamaica. If I had asked for a bounce, then, Spain would have been able to say, okay, let's bounce Bay of Panama and then gone to Gulf of Honduras and built in Panama, and I wouldn't have gotten Jamaica as a center. So I decided to prioritize that and move to Lagone since nobody had taken it yet. I also discovered land fleet technology. Very interesting. Let's see here. Oh, yes, I remember why I moved out of Bretahalid now. So, for one thing, since I was already moving to Iceland and clearly allied to Russia, I figured that it would be one way to get, and also allied to France. I figured it would be one way to prevent Inuit from actually attacking me. But another thing was I wanted to use the fleet there against Mali. I figured that by the time it got to got there, that I wouldn't need Mali's help against the Netherlands anymore, and that me and Congo could actually push against them. And I also was very, very keen on making sure that Mali wouldn't be able to build any fleets ever, because I knew that Portugal wasn't going to be able to defend Azores and Cabo Verde. I knew that Spain was going to be busy fighting the Ottomans. And so I was, I was trying to make sure that nobody was going to be able to take over NAO but me. And yeah, making sure going to see Warta Seamounts, that wasn't actually a stab on Portugal. That was me preparing to go to Serra Leoa Rise so that Mali wouldn't be able to build in Quoja. But also, it made it to where Spain, if they stabbed Portugal, I would be able to influence that a lot more. So yeah, that was the thought process behind it. Was this is actually a pro Portugal move and an anti Mali move. Yeah. Okay. So, coring Saint Domenico, I was very, very upset with that. I did not want that to happen because, well, I feel like it's kind of for obvious reasons. I think that I ended up getting France to agree not to core it in the next spring, but that's a very blatantly anti-English move because I control most of the centers around that area. I did talk with France several times about stabbing for Barbados, and he said that Caribbean Sea was going to support hold it, and so I decided not to burn a bridge with Poland. And I could have dotted France across the board here. I could have taken Mont Royal. I could have. That's a bad idea. Anyway, I could have taken Cayenne. It wouldn't make sense because even if I did get Spanish help against France, you just can't make an enemy of the Netherlands and then make an enemy of France right after that. It wouldn't have worked, especially since I left the army in London. I wasn't able to build two fleets on the English Channel. So, yeah. But I did keep the army in Guadalupe because I wasn't just going to let completely give up the opportunity to ever take Barbados off of Poland. And then St. Marcos Bay was an anti-Dutch move. Me and Congo were talking about, not only taking over Dutch Africa, but also Congo's long-term plans involved invading South America because they had already made an enemy of Portugal and an enemy of the Dutch. And so, and they didn't really have great press with Mapuche either. So they were, throughout the whole game, they built up fleets in preparation to invade the South Atlantic and take over South America. And that never ended up happening. But this did get me Mauritiusstad guaranteed. So, or if the Netherlands didn't build, which I think that they lost enough here. So this mess right here is Aja supporting Niani to Sinufo, and Niani supporting Cormonton to Aja, which, I did seriously debate this because Gulf of Guinea would have been able to take Cormonton, and if that happened, if you lose your core in a one core colony, then you're screwed, right? I'd be like just like Poland, although Poland here is able to take Jacob Fort and doesn't the whole game, pretty much. But I was very paranoid about losing Cormonton, and so I had a plan to have Sinufo move there. But I think something that ended up changing my mind was that I wanted to be able to build. Mali wanted me to build a fleet to contest Congo's control over Guinea Rise and Sao Tome, and I wanted to build an army to get into Great Ardra. And this conflict of interest combined with the move to Siwar to Seamounts and the fact that I was clearly still working with Portugal and India, it made Molly realize that something was up. It kind of tipped my hand a little bit, this move, but I think it was more the build that. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, Congo supported the Ottoman army, and Mali supported Abyssinia against the Ottoman army. I think this might have been when another sub happened. Oh no, the Ottomans in no? The Ottomans moved one unit. They only moved out of Darfur. Wait, no. They moved Swakini to Cairo. And they moved Levantine Sea to itself. And that was it. Those were the only moves that the Ottomans made across the entire board. They held everything else. The Ottomans were a weird country throughout the whole game. The first player had just basically no press. The second player didn't really understand how to input moves or something. The third player, like I said, was much better, but it was too late. Yeah, the Ottomans definitely struggled throughout this game, and that was very unfortunate. Like I said at the very start of this video, for those of you that remember, because I'm several hours in now, I'm sure, I wanted the Ottomans to be a counterweight to Spain, because if Spain was gaining in the Mediterranean, I was scared that they would go, I've got all these cores in the Caribbean, and England doesn't have that many fleets, and I might just decide to dump all those units over there. But that never happened. Either the Ottomans doing well in the Med, or Spain building a bunch of fleets in the Caribbean, thankfully. So yeah, this further destroyed the relations between Mali and Congo, which got me excited. Anything else? Okay, this was significant. France supported Ajuran into Sakalava, and took Delgoa and Mozambique Channel. I wanted France and Portugal to be at peace. I didn't want France to have an excuse to build another fleet in Nantes. Iberian Current is a very volatile position. That I kind of like the way that the westernmost part of Europe is set up, except for that Portugal is really vulnerable to Spain building an army in Madrid and just killing them. Because a lot of the time it feels like Portugal is not building and Spain is. But aside from that, I mean, this whole area is really, really well done. yeah. So yeah. Um so I'm kind of upset that France is stabbing Portugal. Cuz I mean they're already dying to the South American regionals. They're dying cuz the Dutch is stabbing them. Uh I mean they're already going to lose most of their centers. Uh so I just don't see the value in for me in France attacking them because uh well, I want Portugal to survive over here so that because I don't want Spain and Portugal to fight because then there will be either Spanish units moving towards me or Portugal will have an actual secure capital and then they'll have the option of going to NAO consistently. So that was upsetting. So tensions with France are brewing, coring St. Domingo, Caribbean Sea support Barbados, uh, taking Delagoa, right? Uh, moving to INO. All things that I was not wanting France to do that ended up happening. Uh, uh, Anything else? No. Yeah. So I should say that I very seriously considered taking Cayenne here. Uh, I don't think that I should have done it, but based on all the things that were happening, it was looking like I might need to accelerate plans to stab France and wait on stabbing Portugal for longer. So do we have the scoreboard here? Oh yes. Yay, we're at the top. The three of us are our great alliance. And so yeah, I'm in first. I have 6 builds. And in the public square, people are like, oh my gosh, England, you're doing really good. Uh, and, you know, me and France and Spain in our three-way chat are jumping up and down. I'm allied to Russia. Qing, I, you know, haven't had any serious press with. I'm allied to Congo. I'm basically allied to everybody who's doing well except for Athapesca. Uh, and so things are looking good. I've played a very good game up to this point. Not perfectly, but up until now, I feel like I've done a really good job of appeasing allies and not getting stabbed and making stabs where I need to. So now let's go to builds. Or no, to retreats. So some things are actually significant here. So this is a map error. The Dutch unit is able to retreat, and I think this is where. Let me see if I got this right. Yes. Okay. So this is where the new Netherlands player subbed in. Pretty sure. And he basically said that he didn't feel like it was worth it to actually do anything in North America. Oh, no. It wasn't yet. Yeah, I think this was still the original Netherlands player at this point. But he said that he no longer cared about North America. And so I was able to convince him to disband New Amsterdam, which was quite the accomplishment, I will say. Sweden retreating to Jämtland was also a positive for me because if it had retreated to Christiania, then would have allowed Russia to make progress on Umeå. But, you know, I mean, it was the tactically soundest move, but, you know, it's always good to see whenever two people are attacking somebody and you're one of them, it's good to see the enemy's unit moving slightly towards the other person attacking you. Uh, feel like that's kind of it here. The Dutch retreat into Great Ardra, which is also great because it means they're not retreating into Notza and building. Oh, I didn't talk about India, did I? No, okay. So throughout the game, there were a lot of guesses, and I often ended up thinking that other people will usually prioritize the center, and so I decided to prioritize the non-SC most of the time. Hence, I figured, Mughal is probably going to go to Kolkata because they know that they can't stop Andhra Coast. And so I moved to Gondwana, and that was definitely the right choice here. And I think not taking Ceylon also, in addition to, so I wanted to get into Andhra Coast very badly to be able to have that against the Mughals. And so I think I said to the Dutch, will you disband New Amsterdam if I don't take Ceylon this year? And they said yes, because they wanted to support Sumatra so that Ayutthaya wouldn't get two on it. And so that was a deal that I kept, and it ended up working out. Even though it did leave Ceylon up for builds, I figured that the Dutch was probably going down several, so that did not end up actually mattering. And then Safavid got attacked by Russia, and that was upsetting because I'm working with Russia over here, but I need Safavid help and also taking Muscat. This was agreed on, which I did not find out about until after this season. But I was beginning to think that, maybe Safavids aren't such a great ally against Mughals. I mean, yeah, they tried to take Kabul, but Mughals and Russia are clearly allied, and they're going to be able to push into Safavids. So, since I already have a good relationship with Russia, I'm talking about getting them to attack the Mughals. Since I already have a good relationship with Safavid, I'm trying to get them to attack the Mughals with Russia, and it isn't working because why would they? Russia and Safavid, they both are able to still make gains against Ottomans who either NMR most of their units or, aren't that great to begin with. And so Russia figures I can take over Safavids and still make gains from Ottomans. I don't have to suffer any consequences from it. Qing are not really going to do anything about it. And, since I've made peace with Poland, really my only enemy is Sweden. And I've got all these units sitting around doing nothing. So yeah, that was one disappointing thing about this year. But it's not directly on my border, so it's not the utmost priority. As long as I continue to gain dots, we'll be good. And as long as I'm ahead of France for the rest of the game, then yeah. So anyway, uh, who's I looking at? Somebody's build numbers. Oh, Netherlands, -3. That was huge because it meant that they weren't able to put any more units in Ceylon. So that was really good.
I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a like. Make sure to stick around for more videos on this coming in the future. If you like Nintendo games, then you can also make sure to check out some of the other videos on my channel, and you can see my great track record of finishing projects on this channel. It's really good. I've finished every single series that I've ever made, definitely, for sure. And subscribe or I stab you. Bye.